Okay, so it's super interesting story of how this all began. So the beginning of the story was I was actually in the last year of high school in England, and it was the first day of class, and that we had a religion, syllabus at school. So we're all sitting there really like deflated and like, we've got to deal with this for an hour. And the teacher was really different, and he came in, he said, how many of you are remotely interested in learning about religion? Put your hands up. Well, nobody did. And he said, okay, we'll never speak of it again. And we were like, what? So he was so smart because he had our attention from the word go. So he taught us, and we didn't even realize we were being taught. So he did an exercise which had us going for 6 weeks. So he said, right, I'm going to pose a question and I want you to figure out the answer. So he said, you're on a path, and he said, there's a fork in the road and you have to decide which you're going to take. He said, the devil is standing on one side, guarding the path, and an angel on the other. Which path do you choose? He said, oh, and I forgot to tell you, one of them lies, but you don't know which one it is. This had us going for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I remember and I think the answer was you ask one what the other one would say, and then you go the opposite path or something like that. So I'm going back to when I was 16. So, so I really liked this guy a lot. And then in one of our lessons, he actually did some hypnosis. So I have no idea whether he had any hypnosis background or not. And basically he was talking about the ido-meteor responses, which is, we don't really use them these days, but it's when a client isn't speaking verbally, because sometimes that can happen, and you set up a finger for yes and a finger for no. So he was kind of explaining about that. So that was when the seed was planted. So it was sort of in there, not really doing too much, but I really loved his class a lot. The next thing that happened was I'd got married, and my husband was not doing too good. He was abusive. I already knew what was wrong and what the cause of the issue was, but he wasn't listening to me. So back in the day, you'd go to the yellow pages. So I was just flicking through. I had no idea what I was looking for. I was just aimlessly looking through, trying to get help, but I wasn't really focused on too much. So I'm flicking, and then a whole page comes up with this guy in this very mysterious kind of pose. And I was like, what's this? And he was a hypnotherapist, and he lived like 10 miles away. So I called him, and to my pleasant surprise, he was American. So I book him, we go see him, and I'm sitting there and I'm in the consultation, and he says to my husband, you're going to have 3 dreams in the next week. And he said, it will tell you the actual root cause of the problem. Now, my husband suffered with very bad nightmares, and it was bad. Like every night there would be, his arms and legs would be flailing, he'd be screaming. And I was like, great, this is going to be even worse now. So he said, don't listen to anything I say, Sarah, you can just sit there and kind of observe. So this information came out, and I'm sitting there like, this is never going to work. So we go home. The first night he sleeps through and doesn't even wake up. So I'm like, that wasn't what I was expecting. He slept through for 6 nights. So there was 1 night left, and he had all 3 dreams, one after the other, and it was really bad. And he said his parents were tearing him apart, literally. So his mum was on one side here and his dad was on the other, and they were literally pulling him. So at that point, I'm like, I need to know how this works, because it was just amazing. So that was the seed that was planted, and everything just happened beautifully. I'd had a reading when I was probably about 24, and she said, you're going to be doing a job that you don't know exists, and you're going to be amazing at it. And she said, it's not even in your realm of possibility at the moment, but she said, you're going to be doing something, you're going to be helping people, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. Then you start kind of like joining all the dots. And then I went to the guy and met him, and he was very kind. He spent 2 hours with me, and he was explaining he had a practice in New York. So he was in New York for 6 months, working at the practice there, and then back in England for 6 months. So a story he told me, which has always stuck in my mind, a client in New York had been through a traumatic event. He saw his family killed. He stopped at the side of the road to use an ATM, and the kids and his wife were in the car, and it got taken out by a truck. And in that very moment, he went blind. And he said, this guy had been coming, to see me. And he said, I basically cleared the room of anything sharp and put pillows and cushions everywhere. And I laid him down, and I had to have him try to go through the day, and kind of try to get him to see the event, because he didn't want to see it. So the vision just cut off. And it's but you need your vision now. You can't, you're not even living. And he said, there's no point in me living. My life is gone. And he kept having to run the trauma through, and it took all day. And he said, he was screaming and yelling. And first of all, it was it couldn't see anything. The next time he heard it, the next time he run it, it was really dark, but not completely black. The next time he run it, he could feel everything. So this was a really long, laborious process that had happened. So it was one of those things. And he said, the reason I became a hypnotherapist was because I wanted to help people. And I just said, where do I start learning this stuff? So he gave me some pointers, and then I did a distance learning course in England, which they sent you a packet, and you read everything and then answered the questions and sent it back. I consistently got a 98%. And I had to go and do a practical for that, so I had to travel somewhere else. And we had to do an induction, which is how to get someone in hypnosis. And the basic standard way of doing that is head to toe relaxation. It's a safe thing to do. So they paired us up, and they said, get to know your person, because we're going to be doing, you're going to be doing it here in front of everybody, and I'm going to be marking you. So I sat my guy down, and I'm like, what is your absolute thing that you love to do in all the world? He said, my motorcycle. He said, I absolutely love riding my motorcycle. And I said, so what about that is so good? He said, I love the hum of the engine, the feel of the road beneath me, the wind blowing, the different scents that I smell, depending on where I am. And it really was his thing. So rather than do something safe, which was the head to toe relaxation, I did an induction on him being on his motorcycle. And at the end, the examiner said, don't leave. You need to come and talk to me. And I thought, oh my God, I've done something wrong. And she said, in 20 years of doing this, I've never ever had somebody that has done that. Everyone's done something basic. And she said, you need to be doing this full time. So, that was really good. And then I just kind of started getting my practice up and learning. So I did an NLP course in London, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So that's a way of reprogramming the brain with language, but you don't really know that it's happening. So a lot of sales people use NLP to help them to sell. So I did a course. I wasn't quite emotionally ready for it. It was a little overwhelming, but I did that. And then I did some other courses at the local college, and then I started on my practice. Then I moved here. I had to shelve my hypnotherapy training and career for a while because I was doing something else. And then I said, I've got to get back to what I'm supposed to be doing. So I went to the only state licensed school in Florida for hypnotherapy training, which was in Gainesville. It's now moved to Tampa. And I went to visit the guy up there, and it was it cost me in total $9,000 to get my certificate. And I said, I just want to do the whole program. Forget I did anything in England, because I just want to do the whole thing. So I embarked on that. So it was 500 hours of training, which I did. That took me a year to do, and I absolutely loved it. And I definitely think my American training is 500 times better than England. So I was really excited about that. So I did hypnotherapist, clinical hypnotherapist, and transpersonal regressionist. So the transpersonal side of things is the past life regression, natal regression, entity attachment, alien abduction and stuff like that. And I said, will I need those things? And he said, absolutely. He said, you never know when something's going to happen. So someone can come in with depression, and it could be a past life trauma. They could have an entity attachment. It could be something that's happened in this lifetime. So he said it's super important to have the full range of training. So that's basically what I did. So I kind of almost started afresh, really, and off I went. So my certification is QHHT, which is clinical hypnotherapist. I'm also a Reiki master, so I do energy work because that's very important. I'm dealing with the emotional side of things with hypnotherapy, but the physical aspect also gets energy stuck when there is damage emotionally. So I then did Reiki. I'm a pranic healer, which is very similar to Reiki. So that is dealing with the auric field and the chakra system. So that's energy work there. I'm Ho'oponopono certified. That is a Hawaiian healing prayer to heal everything. So sometimes it will be appropriate for me to teach that to a client. So it's a mantra of things that you say. So I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. So they're saying if you have like dead space where you're not needing to think about anything, if you say those 4 things, you're kind of clearing up karma, and also you're not thinking of anything bad, because often negative thoughts are running, so it kind of starts clearing. So I felt very resonated to go towards that. So I learned that, and I'm also a shaman in training, so which is the indigenous way of healing. So I'm wearing my Pi stone, so this is attached to my mesa, which is over there on my altar, and it's basically there are crystals in that package, and if someone picks a certain crystal, I know what wound they have because I put my wound in there. So when anyone comes in to see me, I can just pull from my various training and experiences I have to help them. So that's kind of basically my backstory.